I don't know. I'm gonna make this like a maybe some regular thing because sometimes at night I can't sleep, so I'm just thinking, and I have long conversations with my mother, and it's actually impressive. Like every time I talk to her, I still learn. I still learn. I mean, she's been teaching my whole life, and I still learn. It's interesting because she just told me something I really forgot. There was something called an integrated class in kindergarten, right? So when I was 3 years old, she put me into a so-called integrated class, which means you as and luckily I was a healthy child, I'm mixed with children which are actually challenged. It could be they could have some kind of illness, they could be motorically challenged, they could be mentally challenged. Some of them have autism, some are deaf, some are blind, some are motorically challenged or spastic. And I grew up with them, and I realized that I had lost my ignorance towards those conditions. And for me, it built something which was really, really valuable later in my life. I mean, 5 years later, it really happened to us. I got a disabled sister, and the the feelings I have towards her were actually amplified even more by the fact that I had lost my ignorance towards the privilege I really had. And my mother told me that that was a conscious choice, that I went to those types of classes instead of going to so-called normal class with normal people. Obviously, this was mixed. It wasn't only challenged children, but also normally. So the ones I was in was the mixed one. And she said there was another mother which chose to send her daughter to a so-called normal class because she felt that her daughter would be disgusted by seeing those spastic children and she wouldn't be able to eat, and that would actually be a huge disadvantage to her education. And looking at this now and what my mother told me, she said, look, you're all potentially disabled. You're all potentially financially challenged, or in other words, poor. And you're all potentially aesthetically challenged, or in other words, what some people might say ugly. So actually, this is true. We are all one accident away from being deaf, blind, motorically challenged, intellectually challenged, even racially discriminated against. We're just one border away. So if we actually allow this ignorance to thrive, and if we just allow those ignorant people to have a voice, we live in a very fragile world. I mean, think about it. You're just one border away from racially discriminated against, one car accident away from being challenged in any type of way, and you lose that privilege. So I'm not an emotionally intelligent guy, I would say, right? My EQ might be really low because I'm more like, I would say I'm a businessman. So I try to explain things as a business person to myself, and then I make analogs so I can explain it better. For example, if you allow a world to exist where you live in this small cocoon and this ignorance thrives, the risk of your privilege actually increases. In terms of business, your security actually becomes super expensive. Like an insurance premium is measured based on the risk. So you actually end up paying more for your privilege by allowing this ignorance to thrive. So even if you're ignorant, think about yourself, and you will actually end up paying more if you allow this to happen, right? That's one thing. I mean, my mother always tries to teach me these things, and I appreciate that because she has this life experience, and probably she's much more intellectually and even emotionally intelligent than I am. And so if I had children, I think that's something I would try to do as well. Just give this to my daughter or my son and say, look, what are you bringing as a human to the market? And again, I'm talking like a business person, right? A business person always looks at, okay, what is it that I can add to the market as value when I do transactions? Think about a transaction such as, okay, I'm single, I'm looking for a partner, right? And again, this is very technical, just an analog to what I'm trying to convey as a message, not necessarily literally meant. But if I would sell something like my looks, right? And to be honest, like just my mother, maybe my parents would consider me looking handsome forever, but honestly speaking, it's a depreciating asset, right? I mean, the older I get, the less attractive aesthetically I look. So if I would sell my looks only to my partner, then I would actually try to sell a depreciating asset. And what we usually do as businessmen, we don't buy depreciating assets. We lease them, we rent them, and we use them. And then we just, if we don't need them anymore or the depreciation is so severe, we just get rid of them. But if I would actually sell character on the market, that's something which is really appreciating in value. It's something which becomes more valuable with your experience, with your cultural and your intellectual wealth you have. So that's something I would really try to sell. I think I have hair here from my cat, so I'm trying to get rid of that. Excuse me for that. So generally saying, if I had children, I would teach them, or I would actually convey this message and say, if you're bringing something to the market, let it be character. And you will be an investment for other people. And they will try to keep you in their lives. If you're trying to sell which is depreciating in value, you'll just be used.